back to another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com, the final 2025 edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports. Glad to have you on board today as we get ready for the Rose Bowl. Going to be a very Rose Bowl preview heavy episode today. Hope all of you had a wonderful Christmas holiday, or maybe you celebrate Hanukkah. Who knows, whatever it is you may have celebrated over the last couple of weeks. But we were off this past Tuesday, and whatever it is you and your family did, hopefully you guys had a wonderful holiday. And I'm glad to be back here with you today as we have a big-time football game to talk about. Indiana versus Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Hoosiers' first time out in Pasadena for this game since 1967. Of course, they were out in Pasadena last year when they made that kind of the first statement win of the Curt Cignetti era, as they went on the road in the Rose Bowl and defeated the Bruins against a not-so-good Bruins team, I might add. But still, nonetheless, the first step in this long journey that has been the 2-year Curt Cignetti era so far. And that's where we are right now. Indiana preparing to take on perennial power Alabama, ninth seeded Alabama, I should say. And I'm very excited. I know you're very excited. Going to have Mitchell Paige on once again to discuss the game, our thoughts, our emotions on what we think might go down on Thursday, New Year's Day. One of 3 playoff games happening that day. The other will take place on New Year's Eve, of course. And I'm hoping this is the beginning of an unforgettable playoff run for Indiana football. I hope this isn't the end. They've already made it one step further than they did last season, though they have not won a playoff game. They got to this spot by earning it, of course, by earning the bye, by winning the Big Ten championship, and really just having the regular season that they did. So they've already surpassed in numerous ways what they accomplished last season, and who knows what the ceiling is for this team. I hope it's not where they are right now, but you never know. Every team left in the playoff is a team that if they get hot, if they figure things out at the right time, they can go on a run and win this entire thing. I do believe that. But at the same time, I also believe Indiana is the most equipped team to go on and win this whole thing. They're the only team that's that went the regular season and I guess their conference championship without having a blemish on the record. So who's to say they don't have the best tools? And I'm talking roster, personnel, coaches, everything to go on and win this entire thing. So a lot of good things to do or talk about on today's show. I already mentioned Mitchell Paige coming on here. We'll get to that in just a minute. Also bringing on Matt Stahl of AL.com. He's going to give us a bit of the inside scoop on what to expect from the Crimson Tide as they get ready to take on the undefeated Hoosiers this Thursday. Really good conversation that I'm looking forward to sharing with you as well. And then towards the end, we'll kind of catch up on everything that's happened with Indiana basketball, men and women. Not going to go too in-depth on men's basketball today, just because, let's be honest, the results that have taken place, the matchups that have taken place in the last week or two, they're against opponents that they should handle, and they did handle, I should say. But we'll get to a little more on that here in the latter portion of today's show. Also, I'll kind of share a little bit of my thoughts on how things have shaped up with the Colts here in the last several weeks. And then at that point, we'll wrap up today's edition, the final, as I said earlier, 2025 edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports. Also worth mentioning real quick, Indiana Hoosiers football did not lose a game in the year 2025. Their playoff matchup last year was in December, meaning their most recent loss in football was back in 2024. So Indiana did not lose a game in 2025. So that's something that fans can also hang their hat on top of what they've already been able to do. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our conversation with Mitchell. I know that's what I feel like most of you come here for, and that's quite all right. That's the main reason that you watch the show. Then I'm proud that I can bring that content to you. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and bring in Mitchell Paige, and like I said, tons of exciting things to talk about here as Indiana prepares for their date with Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Joining me now here, once again on In Touch with Indiana Sports, who else other than one Mitchell Paige, as we get ready to preview Indiana versus Alabama in the Rose Bowl, the quarterfinals of the 2025-26 college football playoffs. He's all dolled up in the IU varsity jacket. Before we even got recording, he had the helmet on.
I wore the helmet to work today.
You wore it to work today. So how did your colleagues think of that?
They understand. They know there's time to lock in.
Different.
Yeah. If you have been on Twitter in the past week, it feels like there's a lot of fans from down south that believe that the fans are going to be playing in the game. So I just wanted to show that I was ready if called upon, even though clearly we don't have any impact.
Well, speaking of, though, you're talking about being called upon. You are a former player. Do you follow the Instagram account Hoosier Football Worldwide by any chance?
I used to. I don't have Instagram anymore.
Okay.
But whoever runs that account,
they posted one of your highlights from the Foster Farms Bowl the other day. It's why I'm mentioning it.
Oh, no way. Was it any good?
It was the first touchdown pass of the game thrown from Richard Lago to you.
Ooh, that was on we called that play H Coke. And It was a little RPO. If the linebacker that was inside of me takes the bait on the fake, it was just a little stutter and burst to the back of the end zone. Linebacker crept up. Rich threw a great laser beam. That was
he did throw a laser beam.
He showed off his arm strength on that one, if I do remember. I do.
Real quick, before we dive fully in, did you have a good Christmas holiday? I know we didn't do a show last week.
Yeah, it was awesome. A lot of family time, a lot of Indiana football talk, as you can imagine. Come from a family of Hoosiers, so it's just been good to reset from work. Still work to do football-wise, but I haven't really been working, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, this is earlier today at my day job, we were calling this time of the year no man's land. If you know, for whatever job you may be doing, doesn't matter what it is, the week between Christmas and New Year's kind of feels like a buffer week where nobody really does anything.
Yeah, I actually went into work last week, and I think I watched like 7 episodes of The Witcher on our TV. I don't even know why. I just was putting my feet up. It was good. But how was yours?
It was a great Christmas. Obviously, it was Daisy's first one, and so we get to see her kind of feel around with, the Christmas wrapping paper, learn how to tear that stuff apart, and we had a really good time with all that stuff. I got a few IU memorabilia things that I was hoping to add to the collection, if you will. One of them you already saw a picture of. It's the Hoosiers are flipping champs quote shirt, of course, from Fernando Mendoza after they won the Big Ten championship game. And then I also got, this is something that's been around since last year, the Sig 10 hoodie. That's something that whoever created that last year, genius. It's a simple design. You just replace the B with the C. And of course, it's the Big Ten logo, of course, but you change it to the Sig 10. And those are probably two of my favorite things that I got.
What color? Did you get the gray or the
hoodie.
white?
Red hoodie.
Okay, heck yes. Those things are so sick. I don't have one. Yeah. I would love to have one. But that's awesome, man. Christmas is over. Christmas is over. It's time to focus.
But it's really just beginning. Dude. The Rose Bowl's kind of an extension of Christmas for those that get to participate, I feel like.
Yeah, for the Hoosiers.
For the Hoosiers and I guess the Crimson Tide until they face the Hoosiers, right? Are we going into this game with the same mindset that it seems like we always do, where maybe we don't want to go down this pathway, but on paper, Alabama, of course, is a really talented team. Ty Simpson, very talented quarterback, probably going to be taking the first few picks of the NFL draft. Very strong passing attack overall, very good defense. But this Alabama team kind of doesn't run the ball very well. And it's not very, of course, this isn't a Nick Saban run Alabama team, but they have one glaring weakness that I just mentioned that kind of makes you think Indiana, like if you can make Alabama stay one-dimensional, then if Indiana plays their game, then of course, there's a reason they're favored or were favored originally by 6.5 points. And that's because Indiana has the more balanced attack here.
Yeah, certainly more balanced, but you do have to remember Alabama hasn't run the ball all year, and they've won a ton of games. So it's not like if they run the first 10 times right in the line of scrimmage and get tackled for loss every time, that there's going to be some kind of panic. That's just kind of what they do. We talk a lot at the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about Indiana establishing an identity against Old Dominion and physicality at the line of scrimmage. That was going to be their identity. Alabama, kind of the opposite. They are pass heavy, couldn't really get that physical, and I don't even know if it's physicality, but just couldn't execute running the ball for pretty much the entire season, and made their way to the SEC championship, averaging like 7 yards a game on the ground. So obviously a bunch of skill all over the field for them. Be a good challenge. I'll be interested, and this is not a unique take, but I was listening to Bryant Haynes talk about Stephen Daly and how they're going to replace him. And it's going to be interesting because obviously Kellen Wyatt was a different player than Stephen Daly and had different strengths. And before Kellen Wyatt got injured, I remember talking with my dad, really anybody that would listen, how dominant that guy was, how he was always in the backfield, doing the between the legs sack celebration. And then when he goes down, you're like, oh no, what are we going to do now? And you find out Stephen Daly, now he had a bunch of stats already. He'd shown a lot of potential, a ton of tackles for loss. So it didn't feel like that big of a bridge to go to, but they're different players. And Bryant Haynes has adapted the system to make sure that someone like Stephen Daly can excel even more than he already was. So how they replace him by scheme and probably by committee will be really interesting because the key to the game hinges similar to the way that it did against Ohio State, getting pressure on the quarterback. If you can get pressure on Ty Simpson, get them behind chains, get his feet a little happy, speed up his timing, things can go really well for Indiana. If you don't do that, I'm not saying he's Julian Sayin level accurate, but he's got all the talent in the world and he can carve you up pretty quick. So it's going to be, I think, a tell of how the game goes pretty early on when Alabama has the ball, how much pressure we're getting on their dropbacks.
Yeah, because even though we have mentioned that Alabama is fairly, maybe I don't want to say exclusively one-dimensional, but they rely heavily on their passing attack. If you're really good at one thing and it's hard to stop that one thing, then that still could be a problem for Indiana. If Ty Simpson's playing with confidence, I know they went down 17-0 against Oklahoma and looked like they were going to be left for dead on the road in that first game of the CFP. And then all of a sudden, something just started clicking with them for whatever reason. And it goes back to their quarterback. I feel like he started playing with confidence, and once things started rolling for them, and it wasn't necessarily for the complete rest of the game, there were some iffy moments that he had, but if you let somebody like him play with confidence, it's kind of similar to Fernando Mendoza. Any good quarterback can fall into this category. That's where you can kind of find yourself in a bit of a danger zone in a game like this.
Yeah, quarterback and wide receiver connection is all about rhythm. We've seen Indiana get out of sync at times, and if you're not in sync, your steps are quick, everything kind of falls apart. But I think this is what I kind of keep coming back to in my head. Obviously, it's a great comeback being down 17. But how much did you really do to make that happen is kind of my question. The play before Alabama or Oklahoma drops the punt, John Mateer rolls to his left and throws a 50-yard pass down the field that, I mean, couldn't have been delivered in a breadbasket any better for the wide receiver. And I guess it was a running back, so it's a tough catch for him, I guess, but it's a Division I football player. You probably should catch the ball when you're wide open. And he just drops it. It hit him not on his fingertips.
Both teams were making weird drops in that game. I don't know if it was because of
horrible.
I don't know if it was the weather, temperature, wind, whatever. We weren't there, obviously, but it was both teams were having that issue, I noticed.
Really struggling to catch the ball. And so that guy drops the ball. The next play, Oklahoma fumbles the punt, and you kind of start building the snowball that's rolling down the hill. And then John Mateer makes a check at the line of scrimmage. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it was a miscommunication. even though it probably would have been intentional grounding if no one was out. I don't know what was happening.
I think I heard Joel Klatt say that on his show.
Yeah, did you? Okay, that makes me feel
I
smart.
did hear him say that. You're not the only one I've heard say that.
I think he's smart. But you throw it right to the guy in the flat, like he's going to return that for a touchdown, and then you just start the snowball, and you start to get on your heels a little bit. Oklahoma already is a sputtering offense. I told you on an earlier show I went to the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, and that Oklahoma team is stinky. I was very unimpressed by the way that they play on offense. I thought Mateer was good in that game, but they really go by Mateer, die by Mateer, and got Mateer a little off. I said Mateer so many times right there.
Mateer.
Yeah, got him off his base, off his timing, off his rhythm, and you just kind of slowly churn and lean on him. And it just felt like the momentum shift because Alabama shot themselves in the foot a couple of times. So it makes it easier to get back in the game, but you have to be in the position to make the plays if you're Alabama too. So they absolutely made the plays, got back in the game. Sure shows a lot of toughness. I am getting pretty tired of hearing about how nobody believed in Alabama, that their players keep saying. That is their players and their fans on. I got to get off Twitter. This might be the time that this game, I might go on a rant right here. How much time?
Go ahead.
I'm not going to. I'm going to try to be brief, but all season I've talked about how much I love being on Twitter because it's funny. Most people understand that we are fans. We have no impact on Tuesday of the game that's going to happen on Saturday.
Thursday,
I'm not taking,
but yes,
or this is during the season. Like we don't have any impact on what's going to happen. It's funny. I'm saying stuff that I 80% believe to try to get a rise out of you, and you respond with something in a similar vein. Like we're just trying to chirp, and it's funny. These people have none of that. They have none of that. It is. I haven't laughed once. Twitter is the place of happiness and funniness. And it's just not a fun place to be. And somehow that underdog has gone into their team, which just, and I get that a lot of people are picking Indiana because they should, because Indiana's the best team in the country. And you can use that, I guess, as momentum or motivation, do whatever you have to do. But guys, that nobody believed in us line, sad and overdone. I'm very ready. I'll probably give you a prediction of what I've grown into thinking here at the end, but I'm ready to get this one done and get to Atlanta.
There's something about really good coaches, though, and honestly, this happens a lot with some of the elite teams, and it is very annoying. I will give you that because these elite programs, Kirby Smart does the same thing that you're talking about. He convinces his teams, no matter how dominant they may be throughout the season, that for some reason everybody had written them off, that everybody had doubted them, that they couldn't win a national championship. And if you're able to convince your team, no matter how good you are, that those things are true and that is kind of your billboard material, I mean, you've kind of done your job because you want to fight, even if it is the most ridiculous thing to the casual fan or even the hardcore fans like us. If you can give your team that extra little oomph, no matter how dumb and stupid it may seem from the outside, I think it's a genius move from any coaching staff if you can pull off something that really, I mean, like you said, Indiana's the best team in the country right now. But at the same time, Kurt Signetti or anybody on the coaching staff could convince Indiana that they're still not considered the favorite because they're Indiana, you know?
Yeah, I guess. I think there's a way that you do that.
Yes.
Like I do remember some kid from Georgia after they won the national championship that people predicted them to go 7-5. And if you somehow, I guess there's two sides. If you do that, great, but how dumb are your players? I think is another question to ask. It's tired. They belonged in because they made it to the SEC championship, and now they belong on vacation, which is where they're going to be in a couple of days.
So I guess I want to go and ask you.
You got me fired up in here, John. I wasn't expecting.
That's okay. Let's stay fired up.
I'm thinking about Twitter and how stupid these people are. I'm just ready to go to Pasadena, bring on the rains, let that thing monsoon, muck it up.
Is it really going to rain on Thursday in Pasadena for the Rose Bowl?
It doesn't rain for the Rose Bowl. It's not going to rain.
It does, yeah. That's what I can't. I mean, if it does, it does. Honestly, I think that's advantage Indiana as much as I don't
Huge.
want it to rain. Because if you're struggling to throw the ball, I mean, Indiana has a strength in the run game as well. We've already talked about the balanced attack. I mean, maybe Alabama would find something if they absolutely had to abandon their pass game. But either way, I do think a rain game would favor the Hoosiers.
It absolutely would, but I want it to be 70 and sunny and just
Absolutely.
smash them, smush them, John. This is I can't remember a time that it felt like poetic, the opportunity that you get in any sport that I follow or pay attention to, where a team like Indiana has a chance to smush the team that the year before all they did is talk about, oh, they don't play anybody, blah 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 blah. All the banter that Alabama hypothetical SEC wins that I've seen all season, and you just have a chance to absolutely smush that. It's I can't imagine being in that locker room. Thank goodness I'm not. I would not be able to stay composed and play controlled. I'd be throwing illegal chop blocks and trying to cut down on everybody out there.
I want to ask you about, and this is more of, I don't know how much you'll actually humor this question or this thought maybe, but what do you make of the Kalen DeBoer, Kane Womack, Nick Sheridan aspect of playing against Alabama?
From whose perspective?
Just the storyline of the fact that, you know, all three of those guys, their coaching journeys have taken them through Indiana, most of them around the same exact time, of course. DeBoer was only in Indiana for one season, but had a very successful year by the old Indiana standard. They were 8-4 in 2019. Kane Womack was also a part of that staff. I think he was a part of the staff before that, if I'm not mistaken. And then Sheridan, of course, a year or so after, with some very questionable years at offensive coordinator. But what do you just make of the playing against those three guys on the opposite staff?
Yeah, I'm going to leave out Nick Sheridan, but Kalen DeBoer was obviously awesome, and I think he's a really cool person. It's a guy that you cheer for until he goes to Alabama. I think like he's just awesome. Kane Womack ran one of the coolest defenses that I can remember with the chaos, all the blitzes. I can specifically remember one specific blitz where they would have the safety at like 8 yards and the 2D tackles would cross and they bring the safety right up the A gap from like 8 yards deep. And it was like a delayed blitz and it just wreaked havoc on the Big Ten. And he just has a really cool way of designing scheme. I think that's going to be one of the most fun things to watch in the game. I think getting pressure on Ty Simpson is most important, but how do you manage some of the chaos that's inevitably coming? Because Bryant Haynes is a mastermind, but Kane Womack's got some of that, or Womack, however you say it, some of that to him as well, where he gets his players in position to make plays. And I really enjoyed watching him at Indiana. And two dudes that I think are really good. Nick Sheridan, I don't know him as well. I had one interaction with him like shortly after I graduated, kind of take him or leave him. But the other two, I cheer for him if they weren't at Alabama.
Yeah, it was a very weird thing to think about a few years ago when that staff came together. You're like, wow, it's kind of a miniature Indiana.
And their whole strength staff is down there too. The whole Indiana.
That's right, not Derek Owings. That's the current strength guy. David Ballou, right? That's his name.
Yeah, and he brought one of my favorite strength coaches when I was in school was Rick Dannison. I actually think Nick Saban brought him in, but he's been down there a long time. One of the coolest people in the world. Have always cheered for him no matter – he's a guy that you cheer for no matter what, and maybe it's because I know him really well, but they have a ton of IU blood there, and it'd be a really easy staff to cheer for until they went there.
I want to take us down. I want to go through two hypothetical scenarios and kind of get your take on what the response could or maybe should be depending on what happens. We'll start with if things don't go the way that we hope they do, and that's if they somehow lose this game, whatever the style in which they lose. That there is the chance that does happen, of course. So if they lose this game to a perennial power like Alabama, even though they're favored, even though, things have gone Indiana's way virtually not even virtually, completely all season long. They're the only undefeated team left in college football. What do you think the response would be from fans or even yourself? And then how do you kind of reflect on the season ending in that way if that ends up being the case?
Yeah, I think a logical person, if Alabama were to win the game, things have to go exceptionally right for Alabama. It's not impossible. They obviously have a ton of talent, but they need to be pretty much flawless on offense, passing the ball. They need to find a way to stop they need to do a lot of different things to win the game, win the turnover battle. And I think if you're an Indiana fan that is looking at the season as a whole, last year it felt like we were up to like B+ tier. We just couldn't compete on the offensive and defensive line. Now we've shown that. And I think you go into next season like just chomping at the bit, because now they've had a little taste of what kind of that big world, number 1 overall seed, number 1 in America, but it's still the first time that they've done that in ever. So I think you look back and you're proud of what you did, but as I mentioned, I just don't know what that scenario looks like. I don't think there'll be people, Indiana fans, I'm sure, that are like, oh, we failed, we didn't accomplish whatever. That will not be me. I'll be sad.
You can't let and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but you can't let that scenario hurt the legacy of what this team, no matter what happens the rest of the way, will be.
No doubt. This has been one of the most fun seasons of any sports team that I follow that I can remember. And obviously I love Indiana more than all of them. So, this has been 3-ish, almost 4 months of just awesome feelings every day. I think there's a lot more to it, but it's a season that I won't forget because it was the first time we got to number 1, but I do feel that there's a long runway where things like this, maybe not number 1 overall, but success coming.
Well, let's continue back on the path of positivity on this, shall we? So Indiana, let's just say they do take care of business. They defeat Alabama in whatever fashion of your choosing. Maybe they win close. Maybe they win
by 1 point.
Handily.
That's all they got to do.
Yeah, at this point, it's win, survive, and advance, the old cliche, that sort of thing. What do you think? Do you think the national, really what I'm asking here, not the national perspective, what do you think the respect from the SEC pundits, do you think that changes at all if you're able to handle, even though this is it's not your traditional dominant Alabama team, it's a really good Alabama team, but it's not, a Nick Saban Alabama team, of course.
Yeah, I think the only way that you smush that narrative is beating Georgia. That's unfortunately the only team left that I think carries that kind of power in the SEC mind. Like, Georgia's clearly the cream of the conference. Clearly. You look at this Alabama team is extremely flawed, talent everywhere, but how can you not run the ball with 5-star players everywhere? That makes no sense to me. Easy to talk about, well, if you beat Alabama, they can't run the ball, whatever. If you don't play Georgia, well, you didn't have to beat Georgia, so I think the only way is beating Georgia in the national championship to really kind of smush that narrative for good. I would guess majority of Indiana fans do not care. I kind of like messing with SEC people, just not Alabama. Georgia people are pretty funny. Those are really the only, I guess. Tennessee people.
I think Tennessee people are pretty.
They're crazy,
insane lunatics.
They're crazy, but they say funny stuff. They don't talk about it. Everything with Alabama is very surface level. Oh, you've only been a fan for 2 years. Like, dude, what are you talking about? That takes 0 seconds for your brain, hopefully, to come up with. Let's try to get a little crafty. Let's get creative.
Yeah.
There's none of that. Tennessee will look up who your girlfriend was in high school and make fun of her. And that's the kind of banter that I want. I kind of like messing with those people whenever I get the chance. It's just the Alabama people that I have a problem. So this is a long way of saying it doesn't really bother me what they say down there. They're always going to talk about SEC versus Big Ten. Those are the two kind of premier conferences. We'll never get away from it. Oh, you don't play anybody. We had to play this gauntlet of a schedule. Missouri that lost to Virginia. that was oh so tough and propped up every team in the Big Ten's resume. We don't have to talk about any of that, but that'll never go away. That's the nature of sport. That's the way it should be. I think that the Big Ten's better because I live in Big Ten country and I cheer for a Big Ten team. And if I was an SEC fan, I'd be slightly dumber and cheer for my team.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Maybe one more thing we can hit on, and then we'll.
I hope
we'll
that closer. You need to post that on Twitter, and I'm going to read
just that clip.
Just that clip. Post. I'll repost that as myself.
I've been so bad. I've not posted. I don't know if I've posted any like little snippets from the show this year. I've been so bad about.
I need it. We're whatever. It's Monday.
I could have done it. There's some funny moments that I could have taken advantage of and probably gotten the show more viewers.
I'm very fortunate that people engage with my stuff sometimes. That one I would post and tag every SEC fan, Bama's burner that I've seen.
The SEC numbers guy. I wonder who runs that account, because that dude has to be one of the most miserable human beings, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Twitter, Alabama Twitter, SEC Twitter is a dark pit. Alabama's at the bottom of the dark pit. We just got to shed some light to them.
Last thing before we get close to wrapping this up, I guess this is kind of looking ahead, but there's, of course, the probably fairly likely chance that there's 2 rematches ahead of Indiana's path to a national championship. Of course, Oregon, if they get past Texas Tech, of course, if Indiana wins, and then if Indiana gets to the national championship, a rematch with Ohio State. Do you think? What do you make of? I know everybody always says, "Oh, you already beat them once. They know how to. They'll figure out how to get you back the second time around." That's going to be the narrative in both of those potential rematches. I feel like, especially if they get to Ohio State in the national title game. What do you how do you fight back against that? Not necessarily talking about with fans, but is that just a myth? Why do people assume that it's just tough to win the rematch game?
I know that it is. I've played, I guess not in college. I haven't done rematches, but obviously played a lot of rematches in basketball growing up and stuff. And it is. I think you kind of get we already beat these guys. How hard could it be? So
I feel like the real cliche, especially really non-football, and this is mainly, I guess, a basketball thing. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. That's the real cliche. Of course, you're not playing these teams 3 times. It's just twice, but the same kind of function, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just there's familiarity. You have more reps. You've already done it. So maybe at the end of the game, if you're the losing team, you found something as a wide receiver that works against a corner, but you didn't find it till the end of the game when it didn't matter. Or if you're a D lineman, you found a move that you're seeing the tackle get a little weight when you step to here. So his weight's off. Now you can beat him underneath. And you just have a little bit more feel for the other guy. So you can be more effective. But the same is true, obviously, for Indiana. You've got the same, like maybe I found something on a DB that I like that I can now beat, whatever it is. It is interesting. I think the games that we have left, though, are really fun. Outside, I hope that Ole Miss Georgia's a good game. I think Georgia's really good. Ohio State Miami is super interesting. I think Ohio State's really good. I'm a Miami fan, though, so that one's really interesting to me.
Were you sweating bullets in that Miami A&M game? Because that was such a –
yes.
There wasn't a lot going on. There's a lot of missed kicks, just nonsense going on in that game.
It felt like a cartoon that I was watching. No one could complete a pass. No one could make a kick. But it's hard to win, and that's kind of what that proves. And when you're at this stage of the season – obviously, I'm ultra confident about Indiana because I'm an Indiana fan. I've only watched Indiana. I've watched a small segment of Alabama. I think they're really good, but I don't know. It's hard to win once. You don't get a second chance. This isn't the NBA playoffs. You don't win 4 out of 7. You got one chance to get it right. Once one play is gone, it's gone forever. And the team that wins the national championship just has to have a lot of things go right along the way. So who knows what could happen? The Oregon-Texas Tech game, if I was a neutral third party, I think is the most interesting of the games.
No, I agree with you. I think Indiana, Alabama, I don't know. It's hard to – I guess I can't really say that because I have a rooting interest in the game.
Right.
If you're removing that, definitely Oregon, Texas Tech.
Yeah, just because there's so much unfamiliarity. I think with – people know Alabama. They know what the SEC is. They kind of know what the Big Ten is. Indiana beat Ohio State. But with Texas Tech, you don't really know. Oregon looked really good against JMU, but it was JMU. They got better and better, but they lost to Indiana. How's that team look against a team with similar speed? Texas Tech plays really fast. I don't know how many times they've played in their history, but probably not very many. It's just a really fun group of games that we have. Who knows kind of what can happen. I just Indiana needs to take care of business, man. That's all I've thought about for however long. It feels like we've been waiting for this game for a year and a half.
And this actually kind of gets into one last thing. You can keep this brief if you want, but are you worried at all about the layoff? What's it been, 3.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks since they last played?
I would be. I didn't play for Coach Signetti, so I don't know what the ramp up is, but when you take a second to catch your breath, get healthy, sometimes it can just take a second to get your gears turning. We obviously saw it last year. You're just a little bit rusty, and if a team jumps on you early, it's hard to get back in the game unless they give it to you. Alabama got jumped on early. They were down 17-0, and we're like, holy crap. Coming back from that doesn't happen very often. So I would imagine there'll be a little bit of rust. There has to be. You haven't been at game speed in a month. You've had a month of people telling you how good you are. I don't care who the coach is. That's going to seep in at any level, a certain level. How much time will tell, but it's so important to start fast, and that big long wait makes it really tough.
Plus side, though, I did see that guys like Omar Cooper Jr., who, of course, got hurt during the Big Ten championship game. He's apparently back at full strength. That's the one really good thing about this time off. Allows guys who may have been a bit banged up. Of course, we can't throw Stephen Daly into that category just because of the nature of his injury.
Yeah.
But everybody else who was kind of that fringe, getting the full strength, this allowed you to do that. And I think what it comes down to, Mitchell, and we'll end on this. First team, or really, let's just talk Indiana specifically, I guess, with this, since they've had the longer layoff at this point. All it takes is one big play, I think, to kind of wake everybody up. Because there's going to be those first few, I don't know, maybe it's the first drive, maybe it's the first couple of drives, where it kind of feels like they're just getting their feet a little bit wet once again. Mm-hmm. First big play, first big game, whatever it may be, that opens everything up. That's going to be what you're waiting for when it comes to, okay, this team is alive again. They're going to do what we're used to seeing them do. Because sometimes all it takes is those first couple of first downs. As soon as you're able to get them, if they're punting the first couple of drives, it may be a little, sleepy, a little disgusting looking, that sort of thing. You just got to wait for things to open up to make it feel like things are at full strength again, I feel like.
Yeah, that is one thing. Geez, how many times am I going to stutter?
We keep thinking we're going to end this thing, and we keep finding different directions to go.
It's fun. We're chatting. You just said something really important, because when you talk about the big play, people think a 50-yard touchdown or a interception, whatever it is. A big play could be as small as Fernando Mendoza getting a 6-step out to Elijah Surratt on 3rd and 6 to get the first down. And it's those kind of middle range out routes are such a rhythm throw. It's a rhythm route for the wide receiver. If you can step in and deliver the ball where it's supposed to be, then you get a little pep in your step. Then you make a couple first downs. And even if the drive is 12 plays and it ends with a field goal, the fact that you got those first couple rhythm throws, you're starting to feel good. And if you don't even have to score early, but making sure if you're on defense, it's a 3rd down stop or a ball across the middle that you break up or a tackle for loss, whatever that play is. I mean, I'm thinking about Oregon, a sack on the first play. That set them on their heels for the rest of the game. It's something that doesn't have to be super explosive, but it has to be a big play to get you back in rhythm on both sides of the ball. And that's going to be important for Indiana to do early. Jump on Alabama early is important. Because I think one thing that Indiana does about as good a job as anyone is just suffocating teams that they play. When they get a lead, I guess they gave it up against Penn State, but other than that, they get a 2-score lead, and then it just feels like they constrict, and they don't let you back out. And if you can get into that scenario, obviously it big time benefits Indiana.
Were you wanting to make a prediction earlier? I know you said you kind of had something in mind.
Yeah.
We can end on that note if you want to.
Yeah, I'm curious what yours is first.
Sure. Well, my prediction is.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Are you going to do that on a later show?
So I normally don't make predictions. If people ask me, I try to think of something on my toes if I have something. I keep wrestling. You know what this is? And this is kind of goes back to the beginning of this segment where I kind of was being a little maybe cocky, if you will, about just kind of the strengths versus weaknesses of each team. Mm-hmm. I'm wrestling between Indiana blows them out. I'm kind of thinking the Indiana-Illinois game. That's what I'm going back to. Like, you kind of know you're the superior team, but will they play to that caliber? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they're going to put up 60 on Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think there is a scenario where this game gets out of hand for Alabama, and it's like 42-13, something like that. Maybe I'm not giving their defense enough credit, but my final prediction, I'm going to say Indiana wins 27-10.
I like it. I started the week or the prep when we found out we were playing Alabama. Seeing the logo, I'll admit it. Saw the logo. I think we win by a touchdown. It's kind of where I started.
Okay. Which is where the line started, 6.5.
Yep. And I'm just kind of grown similar to the way I'm just remembering the way that Indiana plays. It's been a while, so you kind of forget what it feels like to watch Indiana and their execution and the way they just suffocation is the word. Like, they just suffocate you on every side of the ball. I'm in you said 27-10. I had 35-13 in my head, but I think I want to get to 38.
Okay.
38-13. That's, yeah. And by Thursday, I'll probably text you that it could be 50-0. I think that's it's a real possibility. Alabama's really good, and a close game is obviously most likely.
Yeah.
It's most likely that this plays to the final possessions. Every play is going to matter. But there's a chance that Cignetti hears the noise in a little different way than most people would, and that hose starts running, and he just turns it up.
Yeah.
Will we get an Alberto Mendoza showing in the Rose Bowl?
That'd be something, wouldn't it? This is honestly, this whole playoff run is a chance for Curt Cignetti in particular. Maybe he's already done this, but this is on the national stage now. Curt Cignetti has a chance to really become the best coach in the country if you can, like, without much of an argument. Like, you could say Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, they both have national championships, of course, right now.
Yeah. I think there's the top three.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the first two. Cignetti's number 3 in if I'm a national media person ranking.
Yes. And that's how the financial hierarchy goes, except now that Lane Kiffin has jumped into that conversation. Since he got hired at LSU.
4 at best.
Exactly. But that's kind of the legacy. I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's his legacy. That's what Curt Cignetti has kind of in front of him as an individual. Yep. But hopefully we got plenty more. I don't ever want this to end, Mitchell. I know maybe I'm gushing a little too much right now. I'm not ready. This needs to go all the way to Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Like, I'm not ready for this to be the last time we're talking about a game coming up on the schedule. This is way too much fun. This do what?
It's not the last time. I'll see you Monday.
I hope it's not the last time.
I'll see you Monday. We'll talk about Alabama for a second, and then talk about whoever we're getting.
Who do you think it's going to be? Who's next opponent? Is it Texas Tech or Oregon?
Dude, I have no idea. No clue. I wouldn't touch that game if I was betting with a 100-foot pole. I have no idea. None. I told you that's the one I'm most excited to watch outside of Indiana, and I'm a huge Miami fan. I'm more excited.
And that game will happen first. Indiana will know who their opponent would be, but once they win their game, if that ends up being the case.
Yeah. A lot of fun, man. What's the countdown? It's Monday at 8:15 as we're
recording this at the 29th of December. Got about this will come out on Tuesday. Well, we got 2 days after that.
Hours?
Something like that. Yeah.
Some kind of math, dude.
Some kind of math.
Cannot wait.
Good stuff as always from Mitchell Paige, and hope you guys enjoyed that just as much as I did. And I mean that. I really cannot stress enough how much I hope that this is not the final week that we get to talk Indiana football. It has been it's one of the things I look forward to each and every week. And I know it's one of the things that you guys look forward to the most on this show, as I mentioned in the first few minutes of today's episode. But we will take a deep dive, if you will, into the opponent and somebody, a friend of mine who covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we're going to get into that conversation here in just a moment. But real quick, I want to go ahead and tell you guys once again about one of our new sponsors during this playoff run. That is Big Game Football Factory. And even though the Christmas holidays are over, maybe you're somebody maybe you got a little bit of extra cash for Christmas and you're trying to figure out how you want to spend it. And of course, Indiana football about ready to make their 2025-2026 debut this Thursday in the college football playoff. And if you want to have one of the cooler collectibles when it comes to memorabilia for Indiana that you can get this limited edition CFP Adidas team football. As if you haven't heard me talk about this before, this particular thing right here, this football is meant to be designed in this for Fernando Mendoza's specifications, if that makes sense. So if you're somebody who wants a unique item, maybe you're trying to add to your Indiana football collection, a way to remember this season by, maybe you haven't gotten something for yourself or for a loved one just yet. This is something that you may be interested in. Right now, if you see right up here at the top of the screen, you'll get free shipping on all orders over $100. And you can see right now that with the price tag of this thing right here being $174.99, that of course would cover your shipping. So if you're looking for a unique item for your Indiana Hoosiers, whether it be football, basketball, or just maybe you're a collector of all things IU, this could be something unique that you can add to your collection. And you can do so right here at Big Game Football Factory. BigGameUSA.com. Just click on the college tab, and you'll be able to click on 2025-2026 college football playoff. Indiana's right there at the top, and that's where you'll find this here item, if you so please. Joining me now here on In Touch with Indiana Sports, it is a good friend of mine. He covers Alabama football. He works for AL.com. It is Matt Stahl. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Man, thanks for having me. Fun to be here.
Glad to have you on board. Of course, we've got Hoosiers versus Crimson Tide in the Rose Bowl, a game where Indiana's favored by, I think it was at one point it started off at 6.5. This is something if you showed an Indiana fan or really anybody a couple of years ago that the Hoosiers would be favored against a blue blood like Alabama in something like the Rose Bowl, the number one seed in the college football playoff, there's not a single person who would have believed you, but that's the reality that we're in right now. It doesn't mean that Indiana's guaranteed to win this game, but it's just a crazy scenario that this is what's happening right now in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer leading Kane Womack on his coaching staff, Nick Sheridan on his coaching staff. Yeah, leading the underdog, scrappy Crimson Tide into a game with mighty Indiana. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. You already mentioned the Indiana ties that Indiana has with the Alabama staff. Of course, Kalen DeBoer, the OC for one season back in 2019, back when Tom Allen was head coach. Kane Womack was the defensive coordinator on staff for a couple of years as well. Nick Sheridan was quarterbacks coach and then offensive coordinator for, I believe, a season, maybe 2 seasons before Tom Allen and company were eventually let go and then replaced by, of course, now Kurt Signetti. A lot of things coming full circle here with for Indiana specifically, but it's a very cool thing for Indiana fans, the storylines to follow here of this matchup. I guess from your perspective covering Alabama, what's kind of been, Kalen DeBoer's, perspective on playing one of his former teams? I know he was only there for a season, but that's definitely got to be something that at least has been on his mind in some way, shape, or form, I imagine.
Yeah, he took a question on that during his press conference. I guess it was Monday. I don't know. Days of the week are kind of meaningless to me right now. But yeah, he got asked about it. He said, yeah, I still pay attention to Indiana just from being there, enjoyed the time in Bloomington. And he mentioned his he mentioned that 2019 season, which I'm actually working on a story right now. This is a convenient teaser. I'm very good at selling things. I'm working on a story about how that 2019 team sort of became the internet's favorite college football team, and just like what that team kind of did for the IU fan base. And he had the same moment, same favorite moment that year as some of the IU fans I talked to, which was that Nebraska game. Now, for Kalen, it was because that's as close, I think, as you can coach to South Dakota in the Big Ten.
That's true.
For everybody else, it was because, Scott Frost talked a lot of trash during the offseason, apparently during Big Ten meetings and such, about how he wanted to play Indiana more and go get that win. But yeah, Kalen definitely touched on that season this week.
Yeah, it's definitely it's something that, of course, once the teams are playing on Thursday, that stuff won't matter whenever the game's going on, but people will certainly be paying attention to it, and certainly a lot of people talking about it right now. But this Alabama team, of course, these last couple of years, it's been kind of a reboot for the Crimson Tide. And really, I would assume, and definitely from an outsider's perspective, the Alabama fan base is kind of having to they're still getting used to life without Nick Saban and just having a team that can win a national championship every year, whether they do or not. That was the norm under Saban. And Kalen DeBoer, especially this year's team, they definitely have the ability to still do that. But it kind of feels like it's been a mixed bag. Every game, it feels like Alabama fans change their mind one way or another on how good Kalen DeBoer is as a head coach. What say you on kind of gauging the temperature of Alabama fans with Kalen DeBoer as the head guy?
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, it's gone from, like, fans get mad at you regardless of what you write every week. But, some weeks they want you to write exclusively, Alabama is the greatest football team of all time. The dynasty's back. Roll Tide roll. The other time it's like, well, why don't you write about how Kalen DeBoer should get the death penalty? What if we brought back the electric chair before Kalen DeBoer? So they're wishy-washy on him a lot. And yeah, a lot of it's just they were this super death machine for 17 seasons under Nick Saban. And really, they were going to be not the super death machine, whether Saban stuck around or not. You just can't build that sort of thing in college football anymore. You can't keep your depth. I mean, people talk all the time. You hear from coaches who maybe showed up at Alabama for one reason or another, and it's like, wow, the 3 deep is all NFL players, like every position, and you can't build that depth anymore, and thus you can't expect to win the national championship every single season. It's gonna be a year by year thing. So I think there's been a harsh recalibration for Alabama fans who are just miserable when they don't win a national championship every year. Till it's like, man, you guys got to find a different way to get some joy out of these seasons, because it's going to be a tough run here.
Yeah, and this season specifically, things did not start off on the right foot for Alabama. You had the opening, I don't know if it was week 0 or week 1. Regardless, they lost to Florida State. A lot of people kind of thought that was maybe a resurgence for the Seminoles. They ended up not being too hot of a team. But again, it was only week 1, and that was really Alabama's only terrible loss at any point during the season. Of course, they didn't look the best against Georgia in the SEC championship, but that's also Georgia. What do you make of this Alabama team this year? I know they rely heavily on the passing attack. Ty Simpson likely to be one of the first couple of quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft this year. What should Indiana fans expect as they take on Alabama in the Rose Bowl this Thursday?
Yeah, it sounds bizarre to say it just from growing up as a college football fan. Alabama can't run the ball at all. Like, the run game is dismal. So yeah, they're looking to find other ways to move the ball around the field. Ty Simpson, when he's on, and I think he's getting healthier and healthier, I think the long gap between games even this time around is going to help even more. But yeah, he definitely looked a lot healthier in that Oklahoma game. He finally got into rhythm in that Oklahoma game, and that was huge. He just looked, the whole offense looked discombobulated in that SEC championship against Georgia. And really the first 3 drives against Oklahoma when they went down 17-0. But the moment he completed a big 3rd down pass to, I guess it was Latair Brooks or Jeremy Bernard. I don't have it in front of me, but he completed that, and suddenly it was on. Like, from there, He needed the one pass. So if he gets into rhythm, this Alabama offense can really make some things shake. But I mean, the offensive line's been shaky too. So if Indiana can really, and Ty hasn't late in the season hasn't been especially good when he gets pushed off his spot. So if they can get some pressure on him, like I'd feel pretty good about Indiana's chances here.
Yeah, and that's been one thing that I feel like a lot of the, traditional blue bloods have kind of been surprised when they've seen kind of the havoc that Indiana's defensive line's been able to create on guys like Dante Moore, for example, at Oregon, and then Julian Sayin with Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. The defense was able to get a ton of pressure on both of those quarterbacks who, outside of those games, had pretty good performances. And that's not to say that Indiana is necessarily going to dominate the line of scrimmage every single, play of the game. But you mentioned if Alabama does have some of that offensive line struggles, it'll be interesting to see, considering Indiana's not gone up against an SEC line per se. And I know that there's whenever you have the Big Ten versus the SEC, there's strengths for both conferences, weaknesses for both conferences when it comes to certain types of personnel. But I think one of the more interesting matchups will be seeing whether or not that Indiana defensive line will be able to continue to wreak the same level of havoc against a team like an Alabama. I know you mentioned they may have some issues on the O-line. That could be part of their run game issues as well. But I think that might be kind of the defining portion of the game that decides who ends up having the edge overall in this one, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alabama's offensive line, it's been so inconsistent all season. And you saw like the Indiana, not the Indiana game, the Oklahoma game was such an encapsulation of that, because early in that game when they're going down 17-0, like Ty's just getting battered back there, right? Like they gave up 4 sacks throughout that game. And then sort of the meat of the game, as Alabama's making its comeback and pulling ahead, they protected him really, really, really well. And then the last 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, they're back at it. Like suddenly the offensive line is cheesecloth again. So there's just not been any level of consistency from them. It's also been, they've figured out, it seems like, the starting offensive line finally here at the very end of the season, because they were running these huge O-line rotations that just not the kind of thing you see a lot from an elite team. Caden Proctor's been very consistent out at left tackle. He's locked that spot down. Parker Brailsford at center. But like just around the line, it's been, Jaden Roberts is in and out of the lineup. Michael Carroll, the true freshman, has been in and out of the lineup as he's developed. Now they're running Carroll out at right tackle, and Wilkin Formby, who was originally the right tackle, is moving back to guard, and then he's back to tackle, and now he's a guard again. So it's been a just weird year, I think, as far as Alabama offensive line goes. It's a position if I'm making portal predictions, I think they're going to make a big effort to get better at offensive line in the portal. I mean, it's different. That's a different story because everybody wants to get better at offensive line in the portal, and it's really hard to do it. But it's not a strength of Alabama's team.
If Alabama is going to give Indiana fits in any specific way, and even find a way to seize momentum for large portions of this game on Thursday, what do you think is going to kind of be the catalyst for that for the Crimson Tide?
Defense. I've said this other places. Like I don't think Alabama is going to win this game. I think Indiana's really good and has the potential to just kind of do the Nick Saban thing and sit on Alabama for 4 quarters. But I think this is a better matchup for Alabama than in Oregon would have been right here, or a team like that, because I think Alabama can score 25 points and win a game against most teams. I don't think Alabama can score 40 and win the game. So it comes back to the defense. You have LT Overton back in the lineup after whatever was up with him, some sort of illness, medical condition situation that never really got fully explained. But he's back. That's big. He's not necessarily like the guy who's going to get a ton of sacks, but he's going to put a ton of pressure. He's another guy in that rotation kind of edge with Yanze Pierre and them out there that they can make some stuff shake there. You got really linebacking that has got a lot better through the season. Deontay Lawson got he was still kind of injured to start the year, and he's back at it. Justin Jefferson, Nikhai Hill-Green has been really good, like fine as the year's gone along too. And then, I mean, the secondary, very good. So it's gonna need to be a defensive thing. You're gonna need to hold IU to like 20 points, 21, somewhere in there, if you're gonna really have a chance at this, because I don't think the offense could win in a shootout in this sort of thing. If a team wins by blowout, I think it'll be Indiana doing that. Like, I don't see a scenario where Alabama blows them out, but it would need to be low scoring and close for Alabama to win this one, I think.
How often does Alabama capitalize off of, getting turnovers and turning it into points? Because Indiana doesn't turn it over a ton, but with Fernando Mendoza specifically, of course, he is an awesome quarterback. He's the Heisman winner, of course, likely to be number 1 or 2 pick in the NFL draft. But in major road games this season, and also in the Ohio State Big Ten championship game, he's thrown at least 1 interception. And a lot of times it's put Indiana in situations where they've had to have either a game-winning drive or a game-tying drive, something like that, just a way to get back ahead. So that's been an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on in the latter portion of the season. It happened against Iowa, happened against Oregon, Penn State, and then I'll also mention the Ohio State game in the Big Ten championship. Does Alabama turn people over? And if they do, how often do they turn it into points?
Yes, when Alabama's successful, they're turning people over. I mean, it was such a huge catalyst in that Oklahoma game, right? It was the Zabian Brown pick 6 at the end of the first half. He'll do that. Like, avoid throwing the ball to Zabian Brown would be my advice to Fernando Mendoza, because he's, with the ball in his hands, he'll find a way to score. He did it against Tennessee. He's a talented guy out there, I think, and he's playing in front of his home crowd. But yeah, it's a huge emphasis for Kane Womack, right? Like, he'll do this whole thing. It's a little asinine, I'm not gonna lie to you, about we call them takeaways, not turnovers, because
that was a Tom Allen. No, that was a Tom Allen thing. Whenever he was head coach at Indiana, he preached the whole takeaways versus turnovers, and I guess that bled into Kane Womack using that same vernacular.
Yeah, he'll correct you in the middle of a press conference. Like, whatever, man. Why'd you have 0 of them last game?
Oh man, you can't pull the whole correcting thing when you don't have any of them.
Yeah, but normally they do have a few of them. That's a big thing for him. Players, they're good at stripping the ball. They're good at jumping on the ball. They got the defensive backs to do it too. Bray Hubbard, really, really talented guy. Keon Sabb will go get you a pick. And then, Zabian Brown, I think he's extremely talented at cornerback.
Also, I looked ahead at the forecast for this Thursday. And of course, usually when you think of Pasadena and the Rose Bowl, you think of perfect weather conditions, mild 70 degrees, sunny, no chance of, inclement weather of any kind. Well, somebody who I follow on Twitter, who I believe is out there, I don't know if they're covering the game or just attending the game, but I saw that there's a pretty large chance of some rain showers for this game on Thursday. Do you think that could be a disadvantage or an advantage for Alabama potentially?
If it's a little bit of rain, I don't know that it matters all that much.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Regular. Now, I'll say that Florida State game, it was monsoon conditions in Tallahassee most of the way. And that's part of why that offense looked so discombobulated. And that game was just like, I mean, you could barely see the field from the press box sort of rain most of the way. So, I mean, if it's doing that, that's going to be an issue, especially because you can't run the ball at all. But, I think it's mostly just disappointing for fans who
of course
roll up to Pasadena. You watch the beautiful Rose Bowl on TV every year, and this is the year it rains. Although I'll say I was here in 23, right, for Nick Saban's last game against Michigan, and all week, like, it's gonna rain in Pasadena, and it was Board of Tourism weather out in Pasadena that day. So we'll see, I guess.
Well, see, Indiana fans haven't been here since 1967, so they're really hoping for the best weather conditions of all time. Even if it ends up not being the case, we'll have to just, I guess, wait and see what ends up happening when we get to January 1st. Anything else? Actually, one last question I have for you, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Are there any injuries or any players out that Indiana fans should be aware of that would be potential impact players?
I'm not seeing like the latest injury report. It's big that LT Overton's back. That's what I'd say. And Josh Cuevas has had another 10 days to prepare. He was sort of on a pitch count for the Oklahoma game. If he's back full strength, he's huge. He's sort of the unsung hero of the Alabama offense this year. Just a great, just always open for Ty Simpson when he needs somewhere to go with the ball fast. So those two, I mean, they're both playing, I think, but those are big.
He is Matt Stahl from AL.com. Pleasure to have you on my show. For those, we'll give you a little inside baseball real quick. We both went to WKU, Western Kentucky University, in the same journalism, radio broadcasting, track, whatever you want to call it. So this is a nice little, get together, reunion, if you will. Here, seeing the teams that we cover face each other in the Rose Bowl. So enjoy your time out in Pasadena. Pleasure having you on the show, and maybe we'll reconnect again sometime in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Roll Tops.
A big thanks to Matt Stahl for taking the time to come on today's show and let us know what's going on with the University of Alabama, their football team, and what Indiana fans can expect as they take on Alabama here this Thursday. All right, we're going to talk a little bit briefly about some what's going on with Indiana basketball. Of course, something about the way the college basketball schedule lines up with all of these MTE events. There's so many more of them than these last couple of years than there have been ever. And it's made for a lack of, really good games in the college basketball world during the Christmas holiday season. And Indiana was no exception to that. They took on Chicago State and Siena as their final tune-ups in the non-conference slate. They won both of those very easily, 78-58 and then 81-60. If you listen to our most recent episode a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with our guy Zach Browning of the Hoosier.com about just kind of this portion of the schedule. It's really, I think I called them sleeper games or snooze fests, something like sleepy time. I gave it a really weird, strange nickname, if you will. But I think this is, I'm trying to collect my thoughts on how I want to approach what I'm about ready to say, because I don't want to come off as too negative. But I think this was after the Kentucky loss. I saw a pretty prominent social media account, and I don't want to single them out because I don't blame them for what they said at all. In fact, I agree with a lot of what they said. But they had mentioned that apathy for Indiana basketball is at an all-time high. And I'm sure some of you don't fit into that camp, and that's totally all right, of course. But if you're somebody like me that fits into that camp, it's not, first of all, it's not Darren DeVries' fault at all. This goes back several seasons of IU basketball now, beginning really with the Archie Miller era, because there was so much disappointment with, first of all, I guess we're going back a little bit even further with what happened with Tom Crean at the end, at least I should say, and then going into Archie Miller, expecting things to be vastly different and getting things that were really a lot worse in the grand scheme of things. That doesn't work. You move on to Mike Woodson. There's promise once again for a season or two, and then things go back down the toilet once again. And kind of slowly but surely, really it was kind of quickly, and for some fans, there were people jumping off of the Mike Woodson bandwagon quicker than I did. At the same time, it still didn't work out at the end. And now here we are with Darren DeVries, and it's too early to really have any sort of judgment on how things are going, in my opinion. I think things are going well for the most part, but I think this brings me back to my point of apathy. There's been so many years of mediocre men's basketball that it's hard to get excited about where the team is heading when you're just basing things off of results against, at least the most recent results, against teams like a Chicago State, against a Siena, because they do what they're supposed to do. And you do what even the mediocre or less than average teams have done against teams like Chicago State and Siena, that sort of thing. And so it sounds like I'm knocking this team. I'm not trying to, but the ultimate point I'm trying to make here is that we're really going to find out where Indiana men's basketball stands once we turn the calendar year here this upcoming weekend, and they'll take on Washington in Bloomington on Sunday. to kind of kick off the Big Ten slate. You already had a couple of games, one of them being the disappointing loss to Minnesota on the road, but you did follow that up with drubbing of Penn State, where Lamar Wilkerson had the single game record of 3-point shots knocked down. I believe it was 11. So you kind of got the best and worst of Indiana basketball in those first two conference games, and we'll see which version of IU we see as we get back into Big Ten play this Sunday. I'm not saying it has to be one extreme or the next, but which way will they be leaning closer to? And I do, being the optimist, plus it's not a very good Washington team that's coming to town, I might add. It's a good way to get off on the right foot in 2026 by having the Huskies come to town all the way across the country. Of course, it's never easy to travel and be in the best of shape for these road games if you're a team like Washington. And so they'll have the Huskies on Sunday, then they'll travel to Maryland on Wednesday, January 7th. So a home test and a road test to get your feet wet once again in the Big Ten slate for the rest of the season, of course. And so that's when we'll kind of see where this team is headed. I know right now, if the season ended today, Indiana would probably be in the NCAA tournament with not the best seed. Of course, you do want to get in, but you want to get in without being on the bubble. And I think that's kind of been what's been aggravating the most for Indiana fans. You've just been living on the bubble the last several years. You want to get off that bubble and be comfortably in and then build from there. So that's kind of my take on Indiana basketball right now. And I know for some people that probably wasn't a super positive take. It wasn't meant to be a negative take at all, though. It's just kind of where I guess I stand emotionally as a fan. But I do say all of that with the hope that things will continue on an upward trajectory as the Darren DeVries era goes on. I don't have a negative outlook on things at all. It's more of an apathy of where things have been last 5, 6, 7 years for IU hoops. So with that being said, that's what's going on with IU men's basketball. Quick update on what the women's team's done. I believe the last time we chatted, they just defeated Eastern Michigan. They also defeated Western Carolina on December 21st, the winter solstice, for those nerds like me who know that sort of thing. They defeated them, the Catamounts, 71-44. Then they had Big Ten play open up for them on the 29th. Oh, this was look at me doing some research on the air as I'm recording this right now. This game took place right before I started recording tonight's show. And they unfortunately lost 71-48 at home. So not the best win, or not the best result, I should say, for Terry Moore and company. They'll be back in action on Thursday at home once again. The same day, of course, as the Rose Bowl. They'll be taking on Michigan State. That game on the Big Ten Network at noon. So if you want to watch something before you get ready for the Rose Bowl, you can check out some IU women's hoops on the Big Ten Network right around lunchtime. All right, last thing I want to get into very quickly, because I'll get into more in depth on this next week, I believe, depending on what I've got lined up for the show, of course. That's why I want to mention at least some of this now. But several weeks ago, I had made what is now an outrageous claim that the Indianapolis Colts might have been the best team in the NFL. And I'd mentioned when I was kind of talking about that there was a showdown with the Kansas City Chiefs looming that was really going to kind of set the trajectory moving forward for this team. And unfortunately, that was true in all of the wrong ways, because they lost that game in overtime, if you remember. Since then, they've lost every game, making them be on a 6-game losing streak. And I know you had Daniel Jones go out at some point, bringing in Phillip Rivers for kind of his last hurrah. That's been one of the more touching stories, I'll admit, over the last few weeks. It's unfortunate he wasn't able to get Indy back into the playoffs and really get a win. They should have had that Seahawks win. But things have really taken a turn for the absolute worst if you're the Colts. And it's unfortunate. They solidified their not getting into the playoffs with their loss to the Jags this past Sunday, and they'll take on the Texans in essentially a consolation game to wrap up the season. So very disappointing finish after what was one of the more phenomenal starts for the franchise in the last several years. And at least they have something to build off of. If you can avoid injuries, I should say crucial injuries in, next season and in seasons to come, keep your most important players healthy, like a Daniel Jones, or even have somebody, that's not a 44-year-old come in and play backup. And I know they've had injuries all over the place with Anthony Richardson and whoever else is in that quarterback's room. Riley Leonard, I believe, the rookie. But very disappointing finish to the Colts season. And that's just kind of where it is. It was still a fun ride, I guess, if you're a Colts fan. And again, like I said, there's plenty of things to build off of. And if you can stay healthy moving forward next year, then there is a lot to look forward to next season, I would imagine. So that's going to put a bow on today's episode, and I guess put a bow on the 2025 calendar year of In Touch with Indiana Sports. So if you're somebody who has jumped on board this show throughout this year, maybe you've been around since the beginning, and if you are, kudos to you. I'm glad you stuck around for now 135 episodes. Or if you're somebody who found us this season, or even if you're somebody who found us today, glad to have you on board, and I appreciate your listening ears, your watchful eyes if you're watching on YouTube. And I hope to do this for as long as I can create the time to do this show. It's been a fun 2025, and I hope we can continue the momentum into 2026 with hopefully a deep playoff run for Indiana football, and hopefully things can continue, like I said earlier, on an upward trajectory for Indiana basketball as well. So until 2026, this has been another edition of In Touch with Indiana Sports, powered by thehoosier.com.